Welcome to the People's Basics, where we come once again to celebrate the movement for the universal basics of income, services, and rights. Today on the program, we're doing another interview with our multitude of friends of the program. Today, we have mayoral candidate in New York City, as well as, community organizer and activist, as well as rapper, Paperboy Love Prince, joining us today to be able to talk about his platform for running for mayor. And we're going to talk about a lot of the ways he's actually tried to structure the way he campaigns, which I find innovative and refreshing in a very positive tone. So without further ado, let's bring on Paperboy Love Prince onto the People's Basics. Paperboy, welcome to the People's Basics.
Paper, yeah. It's our time. One love. I hope everyone's doing well. It's fantastic to be here. My name is Paperboy Prince. Paperboy Love Prince, an artist, athlete, and activist. I'm also running for mayor of New York City. And yeah, this campaign is based on spreading love. It's about connecting with folks that have been traditionally left out of politics and hyper focusing on them. So yeah, this is a campaign for the people. And I try not to use a lot of the signifiers that a lot of politicians use because they've bastardized what a lot of these terms mean. Things like progressive, things like grassroots, that really represent what our movement is about. So yeah, it's one of those things that you just have to kind of tap in to really understand what's going on.
Yeah, I can understand a lot of what you mean in that kind of the verbiage sometimes doesn't properly clarify what we're all about. And I think so much of what I've seen in your campaign, it's been focused on, in your name yourself, love. And, I have to ask, you mentioned these unseen groups of people, Paperboy. Can you talk about who these people are? Who do you think has been unseen by the political establishment that caused you to run for office?
Paper, yeah. A lot of the people are people just like me. We're talking about young people. We're talking about working class people. Actually, to really break it down, we're talking about most people, most folks, white, black, Asian, Latino, young, old, rich, poor. Most folks are left out of our political process. It's only a select few, and they do this by keeping us asleep, by keeping us disinterested, by keeping us miseducated, by keeping us misinformed, and keeping us asleep so much that we're not even motivated to stay involved and stay in tune with what's going on. I just got off a phone call with a friend who hit me up, a really close friend here in New York, and lifelong New Yorker. And she said, "Hey, how's the campaign going? I'm sorry I haven't been following along. It's just I'm really not good at checking in with politics and understanding all that stuff." And this is things that, these are statements I hear from folks all the time. They feel like politics is this, you know, untouchable topic, untouchable realm for them to have a space to even voice their concerns, have a space to even ask questions. People being afraid to ask a stupid question or say what does this mean, or what is this about, or what is this date. So that's what this campaign is about, and it's why we try to use music, why we try to use fashion, creative events, to get folks excited and to spread knowledge about these things that affect our lives.
Yeah, that resonates with me so much because that was the basic origin of why I even started the Hill of Roses, which eventually became the People's Basics. I had a lot of friends who just did not want to get involved in the political process, and I tried to find out why, and they came up with three main reasons. One, the process is too negative. Like, it just feels gross to have to focus your attention and have that negativity constantly taking up your time. The second is that they just didn't feel like things got done. That even if they got involved, it's like, what impact can I do as a single individual? And then the last thing that I get from them is that, well, they just don't even know where to start. Let's say they overcome the negativity, they're willing to do it, they think that they could actually maybe make a difference. They just don't know where to start. And so that's why we came here to make this platform. And so, I wanted to ask you specifically, what do you think is fostering that kind of culture that is turning people off and making it such an uninviting space to talk?
Yeah, it's all by design. I think that the elite, the school systems, the media, and the establishment politicians all work together to make sure that the people aren't awoken and aren't uh, motivated to take control of their power in this political process. There's so many opportunities to make things more accessible, make it more interesting. I talk about something as simple as, and I don't think getting involved in civics is just about voting. I think that's literally the bare minimum. But an example is I talk about having voting be on excuse me, having voting be on a weekend, right? Something as simple as instead of it being a Tuesday, which I say is a strategically chosen day that's usually of a lot of folks most busy, most tired. That's a work day. That's a
I
school.
mean, it's actually for very antiquated reasons. It was basically back in the day when we had to rely on like horse and buggy to get around places. People needed the time to actually travel to go vote. So they picked it on a Tuesday for people. But I think at this point, we can move on from that antiquated reason.
Exactly. I mean, and if we just were actually but to that point, if we were actually motivated to get people involved in this process and to make it more open and democratic, we would have seen, hey, like you said, the whole point was for folks to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Now we would look at the numbers and say, hey, especially speaking in New York, we have record low turnouts for elections, especially in our Democratic primaries, which most voters in New York City are registered as Democrats. The overwhelming majority, yet our primary voter turnout is a lot of times between 4 and 8% of registered voters, right? So 90% of registered voters aren't even showing up. So if there was an actual effort to reverse this trend, folks would have looked at the date that it was on. They would have looked at the time. They would have looked at the way that the ballot is displayed, the way that the advertising for voting is displayed. And around the city, they have a lot of ads telling folks about ranked choice voting and the time to vote and all these things. And I think that's great. There's a major marketing campaign going into that. But then on top of that, is it effective? Like, is it effective? Because a lot of the stuff I look at, it's not, it almost looks like it's a thing that you're not gonna, like my eyes almost don't see it. It's crazy. And I see them trying. I do see them trying, but it's like they're not putting the same effort that they put into selling us soft drinks, that they put into selling us shoes, that they put into selling us all of these other things. Let's put that same effort into getting folks involved. And I mentioned on Twitter today, I was um, talking about, and this is something I love speaking about, allowing folks more control over their tax dollars.
Yeah.
This is our money. This is our pool of money. We have so little control over it. We don't know when the decisions are being made. We don't know how. We don't know the timeline. We don't know the end result. We don't know the payment schedule. We don't know the contractors that are building these things. There's so many things we don't know. We just vote for a person one time, and then they make tens of thousands of decisions on behalf of our finances, on behalf of our future, and on behalf of our safety. And it's a time now for folks, real people, to start getting involved and using our voices.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Obviously, you're bringing up the point of like direct democracy measures for people to have more say and potentially more use of ballot initiatives as a way of signaling their voice. Because you're right, like we are putting a lot of trust into people, and so very often the electoral mindset is we don't think about policy very often when we're evaluating candidates. We focus on the personalities and the people because that's what we're voting for. We don't get that, mindset of focusing on policy because we don't get to vote for that directly. But I think the other interesting point, as you said, is like, hey, there's not a lot of turnout in these local elections. And part of that, in my opinion, is that there isn't as much media demand for covering these elections because you reach less of an audience than trying to appeal to a national audience with things like a national election. And yourself, you ran for a previous office. You ran for Congress. I think it was New York's 7th district. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask you, you're running for a local office now and you were running for a federal office before. What's been the biggest difference in your mind between those two processes?
You know, I ran for Congress last year. Very interesting. Both times that I've run, it's very unique because both times I've ran, it's been a pandemic going on, which I feel like is a very unique campaigning experience and
Yeah.
takes different types of skills, and it even changes the conversation around policies and what's most important, and even media focus and all of that. As far as the difference, you know, it comes down to knowledge. A lot of folks don't know what. Let's do a little hat switch here. Um, a lot of folks don't know what their local elected officials do. Right. When I
Yeah.
was running for Congress, the biggest thing that I had to do more than tell people my policies was tell people what a congressperson actually does, right? Explaining that to folks. I mean, you'd be surprised at how few people, and we're talking about educated folks, folks with college degrees, folks with master's degrees, folks who have traveled to different countries, folks who vote. They don't know what a congressperson is. They don't know who their congressperson is. So I feel
Oh
like
yeah. Oh boy.
yeah. So in that regard, that's what even motivated me to go so hard and kind of do things in a creative way, because I feel like people weren't looking at this um, position and outside of the kind of the political, I call them political nerds, you know, and I consider myself in that, folks who are already into politics, folks who
Yeah.
are following it, folks who are reading the news and these types of things. They know, but the average person doesn't know. So that was a big thing for running for Congress. I think the difference is right now I'm running for mayor. And with that, people know what a mayor does. Like people have heard of a mayor. They know who the mayor of New York is. They kind of have some familiarity around that. They kind of know what's in that the purview of the powers of that office. So that even though it is a local office, I feel like it's almost a national office because it is, um, you know, much more known, especially with
I get what you mean by that.
yeah,
Yeah, because it's like I'll echo your sentiment, having formerly run for Congress myself. There is a lot of an education gap of understanding what do people really do. What's the difference between someone who's in the House of Representatives and who's in Senate? There's just all these different dynamics that they just don't understand. What is the total responsibility? And as you said, they hardly know who's actually in that office right now. So to your point, mayor is at least kind of a known position because I think it's a little bit more localized. It's in your city. You can see the direct impacts compared to all the decisions of Congress. It's all the way in DC. It's like, who knows what they're doing out in that town and how it's going to flow into our area. It's a little harder to detect. But with that being said, I want to now focus a little bit on the substance of the mayor campaign that you're running, Paperboy. I want to talk about some of those ideas of what you think spreading love would entail. And obviously, some of those are the big platform items that we support here at the network of universal basic income and services. And the first one I want to ask you about is universal basic income. On your policy platform, you say you support a universal basic income of $2,000 a month. Can you walk me through how you would want to do that plan?
paper, yeah. It's our time. I'm spreading love in the city. I'm running for mayor. I'm spreading love in the city. I'm running for mayor. Hey, I'm spreading love in the city. I'm running for mayor. UBI. I'm giving out paper. They said that we couldn't do it, but you see, we did. Not a daddy, but the politician, my kids. Hop out the water. I look like a squid. You got us on the ballot. Now we about to win. Over your head. Overhead lighting. Giving out hugs and kisses. No, I'm not fighting. I'm spreading love. I don't care if you like it. They see my style. Also, they're biting. Diamonds like lightning. Plus, I'm enlightened. Sound and fake is a script they reciting. What happens next? Suspense is heightened. What me in the cage, the kids were biting. I'm eating good. Might get the itis. My name in their mouth like gingivitis. It's our time. You think I'm psychic. Moves like a hero. Ain't got a sidekick. yeah. Yeah. Universal basic income is a big part of my platform. It's a big part of this message. You know, when I first found out about Martin Luther King as a child, um, I was blessed enough to be able to get the kind of in depth in-depth readings on his work and on his activism, and not just the kind of Disney version of it.
Yeah.
And to me, what was so powerful about what he was doing in spreading love was that, you know, before he was assassinated, he was talking about uniting the working class black farmers of the South and the working class white farmers of the South, and all these people, and saying your plights are much more similar than you think,
Yeah.
especially when we talk about economics. And he was doing that under what he called in the 60s a guaranteed income, because even at that time, we were a premier nation economically and have so many resources. So for me, looking at right now, energetically, you know, we have made everything around employment, everything around the workplace and the job. We've based your healthcare on your employment. We've based your well-being and your housing on your employment. We've based your you know, your resources and the actual money that you have on your employment. So so many factors go into employment, and that doesn't take into account when industries change, doesn't take into account disability, and a host of other things. And then just the energetic uh, repercussions that come with, you know, so many folks in our country working jobs that they hate, right? What does that do to our energy and the spirit of this nation? Imagine what it does to our spirit. Imagine what it does to the nation when we have folks inspired, working on things that make them inspired, especially at a time where we have so many machines and systems can help run our that can help run our world. So for me, basic income, you know, is so important. And I say this to folks that are like, hey, is it possible? Should we do it? But that's never going to work. I say, hey, maybe it's the worst idea ever. Maybe it's the worst idea ever. But let's try it. Let's try it for 2 years. Let's try it for 3. Let's try it for 5 years, 10 years. Let's give it a real trial, and see how it goes. And you know, from there, I think people wouldn't want to go back. And if you look at something as simple as Social Security, the same criticisms many have about Social Security, or had about Social Security early on, are some of the ones that they have about basic income. And you know, there's so many benefits to this. I'm really excited about, really excited about it. And so my main thing is, you know, letting people know, getting them excited, keeping the hope alive for it, and
Mm.
fighting for the most possible for people, because they're going to find ways to take it down and trim it down. For
Yeah.
us, it's about fighting for the most possible that we can have. Right now with our government, what do we get? They take so much. I mean, in New York City, you know, no matter how, if you're making on average what people make, they're taking 3.5, in some cases 4 months of all of your work just goes straight to the government, federal, state, and city,
Yeah.
right? 4 months of your work just goes straight there. And what do you get for that, right? I mean, the school systems that are failing, you know, they're not educating people to the level that they should be for 4 months of the fire department, which is great, but you know, and it's great that it's there when you need it. The police, I mean, come on, you know, our roads are not great. So what are we getting for it? What are we getting for? What is it being like? What
Yeah.
we take
We're
home?
not getting a great bang for our buck. Yeah, I hear you on that point. But, you know, I have one question on that, because for myself, I'm a big fan of universal basic income. I even support a $2,000 a month universal basic income as a federal program. But we've seen that there's some potential differences between like local office and federal office. Like even Andrew Yang, who is also another candidate running for office, who ran on universal basic income. When it came to local office, he kind of shrank the program down to being a more targeted for 500,000 people, $2,000 for the whole year. Um, what do you think is possible at a local level to do in terms of a universal basic income?
I think so much is possible, especially in a city like New York City. I mean, again, the economy of New York City is bigger than every state's economy. Excuse me, the budget alone in New York City is larger than every state in America's budget, save 4 states, right? Save
Okay.
4 or 5 states.
Yeah.
It's larger. The budget in New York City is larger than most countries' budgets. Save maybe 10 or 12 countries. It's larger than most countries. So when we talk about the money that is spent here on so many things, right? The money is there. There's tons of money there, and the trajectory for that to grow, there's a high threshold for that to grow. Um, so it's about what we decide to do with it. Are we going to actually invest that in the people? Are we going to invest that in programs that serve contractors that are friends with the politicians? So for me, again, a lot of that is political speak. When you have the power, when you have the position, you can make these things possible if you put the energy and resources toward it. But they're so hung on doing things the way that they've been done, and even people that are new to uh, the political system, like Yang, there are there's such a heavy culture with the establishment politicians that a lot of folks don't want to put their ideas up against the culture of the establishment politicians out of fear of backlash, out of fear of seeming like they don't know what they're doing, out of fear of, hey, you can't do that. That's not how we're supposed to do that. Wait your turn. So for me, it's about disrupting and pushing the narrative forward. I've talked to these politicians. I've talked to the folks that do the budget. They only think inside of this one box. They cannot operate outside of that box. So for me, it's very possible to do. And the case can be made. If any city needs it, it's New York City. I mean, when the pandemic came, we were hardest hit. We were at the eye of the storm. It's easy to forget that now. We had record numbers of deaths happening every day. We had record numbers of cases happening every day. Our city is still shut down in many ways. Jobs were lost. Businesses will never return. So many things that was supposed to happen that happened here couldn't happen, and we're at high risk of that happening again because we still don't have an accurate and adequate public health plan in place for if another pandemic happened tomorrow. We're just as vulnerable as we were a year and a half ago. So for me, the only thing, the bare minimum of what we can do to help us rebound from the pandemic, right? And that's one of the reasons we're even going harder with the basic income in this city is that cash assistance in a real consistent way, So for me, that's very important. It's non-negotiable, and I think that money is just going to go back into the hands of.
This is true.
It's just going to go back into the hands of so many people, and it's going to help keep our economy and world flowing.
Yeah, I mean, it is largely going to have that cyclical effect of the money is not just going to disappear. And I hear this kind of approach that you're going with, which is, disrupting to change what the boxes are that people are checking off and just trying to maximize however much we can get in terms of cash relief for the people. I think it's going to be a very interesting journey to try and see how much we can get out of this localized level. One of my own ideas of how you can get it to be actually universal instead of these targeted programs is having a local currency, having some currency control so that it actually does stay within the city, so that you're not just giving people money, they take it, and then they move out. That you're not just having some problem of, oh, you have debt and you can't control your currency supply to keep the program going. I think a local UBI that uses your own currency is the way you can actually have it be universal instead of all these targeted programs. But I think
Exactly. And I had an interview with New York Magazine that came out today about that, where I spoke literally about that particular idea as a way to help small business as well.
Mhm.
Because during the pandemic, so much money that would have gone to local businesses here went to Seamless, and it went to Amazon, and it went to these other large, tech companies instead of our mom and pop businesses. And I mentioned, having a local currency that could only be spent um, at local businesses, so that we have this money that's being guaranteed circulated in the city through our businesses, and helping to support the employees that work there, helping to support our community. So yeah, that's super important to me as someone with a local business as well.
Yeah, and I think like the way I think you get people to actually use the currency, because that's a whole other question. How do you get people to actually use this paper? In my opinion, you pay for the program with a value-added tax, basically kind of like a sales tax. I'm oversimplifying a little bit. And then you say, hey, if you use our currency instead, no tax on your transaction. And that way you have the funding mechanism as well as the incentive for you to actually use the currency. But I wanted to go to another theme that you had in your previous statement. It sounds very often that we're doing all of these very reactive solutions compared to being a little bit more proactive in setting up some of these systems. And, one of the big themes that you have on your website is really focusing on schools and having, in your terms, a futuristic schools. Can you tell me what you think we actually need to be preparing people for the future? Like, what are we not doing well right now in schooling, in your opinion?
Yeah. So right now, I have a song actually coming out about this. It's like, futuristic schools make learning man. Wait, we need futuristic schools make learning brand new. We need futuristic schools make learning brand new. Make learning brand new. Bring them schools to the future. Schools to the future. Bring them schools to the future. Schools to the future. Hey, it sounds like better with the beat and everything.
Yeah,
But
I can't wait.
yeah, it's an exciting song, and for me, it's about, instead of focusing on education, focusing on intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence. Um, so many things that are happening in school that you learn in school, you forget by the summertime. So many things that you learn in school, the
Yeah.
concepts, you forget by graduation, right? So what are we doing? What's the point? Um, if you graduate from high school, that high school diploma in New York City doesn't get you very far. You have to be very creative and very talented to for that to be able to get you that job that you're supposed to get. So we want to make our schools so dope that uh, college is basically obsolete. If
Yeah.
the public school system was doing what it was supposed to do, you wouldn't need everyone having to go to higher education. We wouldn't need to be the whole time in high school telling you, you gotta go to college, you gotta go to college. Like, what's the
Yeah.
point of going to college? I'm in high school. I should already be, that should be what I need. Now I gotta go to
Yeah.
college. And then when you're in college, you gotta go to grad school, you gotta go to grad. Wait, but I just did undergrad.
It's an endless rat race. Like I love that point because I always ask, why do I need 16 years? Why can't I get it done in 12? Like we have to be making the actual education process itself work. If we're just adding on the same process, is that helping us? Like,
Right, right. I'm like, it's all really it really is a scam. I mean, the public school system is largely a scam. And the private school higher education system is also, largely a scam, ran by the elite. The books, the classes, the courses, the framing, uh, all done by the same types of folks. That it's not, created by the community. The things that are taught there are hyper focused on, Eurocentric history, and not true world history, not hyper local history. So you have folks here in Brooklyn learning more about people in Italy and France than folks in Brooklyn that have done amazing things, and then
yeah,
have, that could serve to inspire them, and they could use that to build on things that they want to do. So there's honestly, that's such a big question. There's so much there, but to get kind of to the root of it, to me, it's about putting the schools in the hands of the youth and their parents. Right now, it's in the hands of the elite. It's in the hands of the corporations and the politicians and folks who are out of touch with what we need and what we want. Whereas, the students know what's going wrong. Like when I was in school, I felt like I knew what I should be learning. I didn't know everything, but I knew, wait, I'm never going to use this. Like some of the stuff I knew then, I was like, I'm never going to use this. And I
Yeah.
was right. I wish I wasn't right, but I was right. And so allowing kids to focus on what is they're passionate about, and then infusing these kind of essential concepts into that, right? So if somebody is super into music, for example, we need more music, we need more arts in the school. They could be doing music all day, but we could
Yeah.
use music as a way to teach folks about math and have math lessons that pull from music, or that use principles of music to help people understand math, and teaching them in that way. We could use that, for using that same example. We could teach them about science through that lens. We could teach them about social studies through that lens. Doing things in a creative way where the concepts stick and it feels fun. I mean, and the last thing I'll say about it is this: you look to the pandemic where we've had a lot of virtual learning. Now, if the teacher was boring in class, you'd be sitting there in class. How boring is the teacher about to be over Zoom? Right?
Yeah. Oh boy, it's brutal.
I
I've taken a couple of those courses when I was in college. It is just so hard to actually get yourself engaged in the material when you're doing mobile. Now, mind you, some people may actually benefit from it. I don't know. Some introverted people who have social anxiety may enjoy the environment of getting to be at home. But I agree with you. It's so much harder to learn. And I think overall, you're kind of saying how we got to take some of the concepts that we use in colleges of letting people kind of control their education a little bit more, personalize it a little bit more, and bring it earlier into our processes. And I think that's really great. Paperboy, I only have two more questions. This is my final policy question. You have on your platform this notion of, love centers and wanting to turn the NYPD into a love team. Can you talk a little bit more about what a love center means to you and what a love team would be comparatively to the NYPD?
I'm spreading love to the community. I'm on a block. I'm spreading unity. I'm being positive. What they gonna do to me? Waving that stick. This isn't new to me. I'm in a trap. I'm spreading love. I'm in the hood. I'm giving out hugs. I'm with your friend. They want some love. They need some more. This ain't enough. People. Yeah. We need to focus on positive reinforcement in our community. Right now, we have negative reinforcement. So if a business doesn't follow some regulation, then they get penalized. But if they do follow, they don't get anything for that. They get penalized from just following the regulation and all the issues that come with doing whatever the city says, right? It's the same way in the community as well. If you make a mistake or do something illegal, you get penalized when you get caught. But when you do something good, you help a senior citizen across the street. You give somebody, give a homeless person some extra funds if they need it. There is no positive reinforcement for that. There's no, outside of just the general satisfaction of being a good person, there's nothing to motivate you in our society to continue to spread love and to put positivity first. So for me, we want to create more opportunities for positive reinforcement, and using the way that the police are set up. They're on the ground and have a lot of interactions with people. They're in the neighborhoods, in the community, really transforming that, really transforming the police force into something that isn't as focused on policing. The vast majority of calls are nonviolent calls, right? That the police respond to. I think it's like 94% of the calls that the NYPD respond to are like nonviolent calls, or calls that have nothing to do with, needing weapons or guns or anything like that. But a lot of these situations end up circulating around this energy, around the energy of policing and, you know, kind of telling folks what to do. And so finding a way that this can feel like more of a community organization that's there to help with so many things, that actually is equipped to deal with it. Because right now, when you see a cop show up, it's like they're kind of only equipped to deal with like a shootout, right? Like they just have like a gun. I mean, the only tools they have with them that they're like readily available are the gun, their stick, some handcuffs, and like a notepad, right? But you don't even see the notepad; it's like tucked away. But all the
Yeah.
other stuff is like very visible, and like those, it's like having to that's like being a tool guy, and the only tool that you have is a screwdriver. It's like great tool, very handy,
Yeah.
but there's so many things that you need to do, so many things you need so many more tools than that. So finding a way to have people that have a wide range of skills and are really really great people, you know, the
Yeah.
people, right? Right now we have the I love a lot of the officers in the NYPD because they are some of the most charismatic and great people that you can meet in the city. I can say that because I've interacted with them, a lot of funny guys. And but for that job, dealing with these tense situations, you really need folks that are experts in love, that are experts in putting positive energy into the city at that point, because that's when folks need it the most. You know, you need folks that are there in that capacity, and so that's why to me, I'm passionate about doing this. And again, if it's the worst idea ever, turning the police into a love team, we can scrap it and we can go back to this. But I feel like it's something that we should try. I feel like, you know, let's try it for 2 years. Let's try it for 4 years. Let's see how it goes. And then the love centers, to get directly into that, you know, right now, and this goes back to basic income. Right now, everywhere you go, uh, you have to pay money. If you want to use the bathroom in New York City, you're gonna have to buy a $5
Yeah.
Starbucks or something to use the bathroom, right? Just something as simple as that. That's not including if you wanted to make friends. If you want to make friends, which I think is an essential human need, friendship, community. If you want to
Yeah.
do that in a city like this, you have to possibly go to a bar. And this is not even including the pandemic. This is pre-pandemic, right?
Yeah.
You have to go to a bar, which then you have to maybe buy alcohol. But, you know, for adult, that's a tough situation. Where do adults get to make friends in a open, um, you know, non-toxic environment that's a safe space, right? So the idea is creating safe spaces where we can make friends, where we can have more folks become friends, where we can strengthen relationships, where we can strengthen marriages, where we can strengthen the bonds between communities and roommates, where we can, you know, learn different languages, we can learn different skills, where we can uh, be proud of the history of individual neighborhoods. The idea of the love center is they would be on as many blocks as possible, and they would be, you know, hyper tailored to each community and each block, those specific needs. You know, if it's a community that has a lot of gun violence and a lot of gang violence, then it could serve as a space to help end some of the gang tensions, as an alternative to joining some of these gangs and organizations, and, you know,
Yeah.
have folks working there that maybe were former gang members and that are now, because I know a lot of folks in the community that were former gang members and are now trying to reverse these trends, but they don't have the spaces to even do that. They don't have the resources to do that. They don't have the institutional support, maybe because they're past, maybe because they made some
Yeah.
mistakes before, and people don't want to give them that second chance. And if we had these spaces that could do that, you know, who knows how many lives we could save? Who knows how we could radicalize and change neighborhoods and communities? So that's the idea behind Love Center.
Well, I love that idea of the Love Center, and I'd love to invite you back on to go through that idea, frankly, in way more depth when we come to our Community and Love Month that we got in a couple months in September. So we'll bring you back then, hopefully, with my co-host, Jackie. But, you know, Paperboy, my last question for yourself for the day is, I want to hear, this is going to be coming out on June 9th. How are you thinking about your own ballot, getting to vote for mayor yourself? Do you have any thoughts for your picks 2 through 5?
Paper, yeah. It's our time. We on the ballot. We made it. Hey, we on the ballot. We made it. Hey. I get excited about that, about the fact that we're on the ballot. It's funny. A lot of folks say, I've seen tweets, I've seen messages. Actually, somebody tagged me in an Instagram story the other day that was like, a lot of my friends I see are voting for this candidate, and then they're writing in Paperboy Prince, and
Mm,
and I'm like, wait till you find out. You don't have to write me in. I'm really on the ballot. Like,
yeah.
folks think that we've just ran a really dope uh Instagram and Twitter press campaign, so that's enough to make people think that we're running for mayor, and then like, oh, everybody's gonna write us in. A lot of folks don't even know we're actually really, really on the ballot for mayor, because it's just that out of this world. They can't even comprehend it. It's like, wait, what? You did what? So yeah, so that's that. As far as other folks that I would rank, honestly, I try to stay, when it comes to voting, I try to think and stay as true to, even though I've been following the race since before I jumped in, I try to stay as true to myself as a voter before running for office as possible.
Mm,
So I try to think like my most regular, nonchalant voting self, so that I'm most in tune with uh, these types of voters. The kind of like,
sure.
oh, I'll vote if I'm not busy that day. Like if I don't have a cool date or there's not a dope show happening. Like I try to like vote along those lines. And yeah, for me, a lot of times, when it comes to local elections, I'm not deciding until a couple days before, a day before, like right then. I really like am down to the wire. So for me, for that, outside of myself, who I'm definitely ranking myself first, and I encourage folks to rank me
Yeah.
first as we have ranked choice voting. So, the idea is kind of somebody who you think might be the longest shot candidate to help rank them first, so that they get as many first place votes as possible, so that they move to that second round of ranked choice voting. So, because a lot of folks that are bigger candidates, okay, this person will probably definitely make it to that second round. So maybe you rank them as your number 2 or your number 3. But folks that you want to, I really support these ideas and I like these ideals. Just to boost this momentum, I'm going to rank this kind of longer shot first. So that's why I'm encouraging people to rank me first, and a lot of folks are doing the same as well, even if they might feel more strongly about another candidate. So for me, that's why I have myself first. But there's a lot of dope candidates out there, and I gotta say, I'm happy to be able to meet a lot of them in person and work with them. Just last night, I was hanging out with Catherine Garcia and Maya Wiley, and met Sean Donovan and Diane Morales.
Yeah, I saw you doing a concert outside of the debate. What inspired that? How'd that go?
Yeah, we were supposed to have a policy meeting at my space in Bushwick, which I encourage everyone to come by. It's a community space and vintage clothing store at 1254 Myrtle Avenue, um, right off the Central M. We were supposed to do an event there, and a bunch of people were tweeting me and emailing me saying, "Yo, you
Yeah.
got to get down to the debates. It's a lot going on out here, and like they could benefit from your energy." So I said, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna go down. And we decided to go down, and we performed, and it was crazy. We're right outside of ABC, and it went from, they had like, I guess, one cop that was already there because it was a mayoral debate,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
like 7 police officers.
Oh God.
By like 30 minutes in, that were all like standing about 50 feet away, and I'm on top of my our campaign tank, the love tank, and I'm on top of the tank, and the cops just like, and
Well,
and they didn't do anything.
yeah, just spreading love in the city, man.
Yeah,
I got it. I got it.
after a while and all of this stuff, but it was a pretty fun time. It was pretty fun time.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I was very appreciative of getting to see you do that. It was good to see you get some press while everyone was having I'll be frank. It was a little bit of a boring debate for the beginning, so it was great to be able to tune into the concert and see what was going on. Paperboy, I want to thank you so much for coming on today. Do you have any final words that you want to share with the People's Basics audience?
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, John. I'm so excited. And listen, any ideas that you all have, this campaign is about you all. This movement is going to last so much longer than this campaign and my tenure as mayor. You know, this movement is not just about right now. It's about the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years. We're really in it for the long haul. You know, a lot of people thought that I was a flash in the pan when I ran for Congress. They thought that that was just a one-time thing. They didn't realize that we're not stopping. We're keeping it going because that's what the people need. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I look forward to seeing how the movement will grow. I was very happy to see you join this race because I do think the way you campaign is certainly very refreshing, very service-oriented, fun, and love-filled. So, Paperboy, thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Paper, yeah, it's our time.
Okay, peace. Okay, everyone. So that was Paperboy Love Prince. We are very appreciative of him taking the time with us today. As we're going to remind you, early voting in the New York City mayoral primary starts on June 12th. That'll be 3 days from when this gets released. And then we have Election Day on June 22nd. So please get involved in trying to support these great campaigns, whether it be Paperboy Love Prince, whether it be Andrew Yang. We want you all to get involved and vote because we got to help boost that turnout rate from being in the 8% to like the 12% range. Let's get local politics activated again. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Please make sure you make us know that if you did. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're right now around 1,900 in subscribers right now. We're trying to build it up. So please, if you can help us boost our numbers so that more people can find about the movement for the universal basics of income, services, and rights, that would be very much appreciated. But that being said, my universal people, that'll do it for today's episode. As always, I hope you have a great night out there, and I hope you stay classy.